Good morning. And yes, in that comment, I read that today is test after this first session. Very true. Very true. I'm happy about it. Else, it happens like in the first session, there'll be so many people. In the second, means I'm finding that there are hardly few. But yes, this enthusiasm is good. And trust me, test would be very nice. I just finished it. Right? There'll be 20 good questions, and yes, it would be like an honest test. Right? Okay. Deliberately written diving deep, because yes, today we'll be going pretty deep, right? In fact, so many queries, like how that particular receptor knows that yes, now there has to be increase in, say, action potential, or I have to, how I have to tell that the muscle would be contracting, or this particular secretion would be there, right? How it all happens. Today you'll be getting answer of all those, because after today's session, yes, you might find it bit complicated, but it has to be, right? It has to be. We are studying medical, so it has to be complicated. And just sorry for one thing. Today we won't be able to keep that 10 o'clock night session, right? I'll definitely try to keep it within a day or two, but because of uh, work, it is very difficult for today. But definitely, either tomorrow or day after tomorrow, positively, I'll do that. Right. So don't worry, it would be done. Plus, there would be one more session, and that session is like for everyone, whether person is in medical science or not. Now, for that session, I would say that whosoever you know, just tell them to attend that session, because that session would be about finding yourself, that what really happens when you are involved in any of the activity, any of the studies. So so why it happens that not everyone is successful. It's a class of, let's say, 50 students. Then why it happens that one student who is working excellent, and there is a student, in spite of studying hard, he is not getting that good result. And it's not so that in his heart he always feels that yes, I should fail. No, no, he'll never feel so. He'll also feel like that one day I should be successful, I should be getting gold medal. But but what's that which makes a complete difference between someone who is at the summit and someone who is at the base? And most of the people, they are at the base, you know. Only few, they reach at the top, and then we dream about them, that how is it so that they were so successful in their life. With success, I'm not talking about only the money part, because literally, don't worry about the money. Money will follow you, right? But be the best. So in this, I'll be sharing in that session, right? It would be, I think, on Saturday. Right? I'll let you know the exact details and everything. But it would be session is not today night. No, sorry, I'm really sorry. It is not for today night, right? I'll just let you know about that MBBS planning, right? MBBS timetable planning. So, in that session, this is the session which I'm talking about, which will be for everyone. It would not be pertaining only to medical students, it would be for everyone. What's that? What's that small thing which makes the entire concept so different, and literally then the success is guaranteed. And all of you will agree with one thing, that life is never like a single straight line, right? There are immense roller coasters, immense, right? And as you will become more and more mature, as you will be starting your new life, as you'll be starting, say, your profession, right? You'll find that there are few rules. If we break those rules, right? These are like the rules given by Chanakya. If we break those rules, then inevitably we fall. So, in that session, we'll be talking about such things, right? It would be a fun, great fun. And again, I am telling, whatever I'll be telling, everything whatever happened in my life and what I learned from it, I don't want you to repeat those mistakes, right? That's what we'll be discussing on that day. Okay, so let's start and do focus on the test, right? Because it is in the second part. So in the noon, we'll be taking this test. So yes, many of the questions I have leaked. Many of the questions I'll be revealing even during our session also. So be sharp and give your maximum attention. And here is the beginning. So we start with, because our today's purpose is what really happens. We studied everything like say preganglionic and postganglionic, and in between there are, right, neurotransmitters, and then there is like say effector organs, right, and then pre there is parasympathetic system and sympathetic system. Yes, it happens. I completely agree. Some students have not come due to fear of the test. Yes, but say those who are here, right? Never be afraid of any test. I'll just take 1 minute. Never be afraid of any test. Forget about this test, because this test, so in any case, it is an honest test, right? So it's like if it is an open test, that is where everyone can see each other's mark, right? Then it becomes like okay, right? There is someone say whom you like, and then he or she feels that yes, this person is so idiot, right? He's not scoring say even 10 marks out of 20. But over here, too, you are always like it's an honest test. You can always boast, right? Even if your score is whatever it is, you can always say that I scored 19 out of 20. Well, my concepts are so good, right? You can write. So, not to worry. But jokes apart, never be afraid of any test. Always take it, right? You will definitely be going home with something extra, and you'll realize that thing today. Just after the test, it's like only 20 questions. We'll be keeping about say 10, maximum 30 seconds per question, so it will be matter of 10 minutes. Within 10 minutes you'll finish the test, but those 10 minutes you'll always remember, right? So let's hope. Or maybe if the students are thinking like that, straight away will appear for the test, right? Why to attend the first session? Well, let's see. Okay, so here it is. We start with our cell. Why suddenly we have shifted our gaze to cell? Because all the way we want today the whole picture. We want whole picture. It means right from the cell, and then we'll keep on diving deep till we'll reach to that point that okay, this is the thing which is telling the muscle, ke boss, now you contract, right? So that's why we need to go for the whole picture. That's why we are starting from the cell. So nothing is left out. And that's what I said, that for first 2 days, I was just preparing the foundation for today's story. Today it's like story, right? Absolute story. Okay, so here is our cell, right? So inside the cell it is called as intracellular, outside the cell it is called as extracellular, no problems. And there is a cell membrane. Yes, there is a cell membrane which is like a covering, and this cell membrane has got selective permeability. Selective permeability means there is something like partiality. It will not tell anyone, everyone, that yes, you can go and come. No, there is partiality. For some it will say no problems, and for some they'll say okay, stop, not permitted, right? Selective permeability. Permeability means ability to pass through the membrane, right? So this is selective. So let's see what exactly it is. This cell membrane, which is made up of lipids, protein, and carbohydrate. Some of the questions are such, right? Because this is one of the question, that which component is maximum in cell membrane, right? That is the protein. And remember, I'm just telling for the last time, I might be revealing some of the questions of the exam. Okay. So cell membrane, So protein 55%, it is highest. Normally we feel that lipids might be more, or carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, so they are just 5%, right? But very, very important, very important. Okay, lipids 40%. But today, our first focus will go on lipids. Why lipids? Because lipids, they are making this important layer, and that is what is called as the bilayer. That means there are two layers, right? There are two layers, layer 1, layer 2, right, of phospholipid, and it is amphiphilic. Amphiphilic means it loves water, it loves lipids, it loves both, right? But which part are we talking about? Well, let's draw a simple figure. This is like its head. The junction is there, that is between head and tail. So here is the head, here is the tail. This head, it loves water, right? So this head, it loves water. So I'll write like H2O here, right? So this head is having water. It is negatively charged, right? This is negatively charged, and the tail is fatty acid. It hates water, right? Tail hates water. It loves lipids, right? It loves lipids. So that's the reason, right? So when it looks so easy, tail loves lipids, right? Tail loves lipids, right? Again, quite musical, right? So automatically head loves water. And we need to be a bit technical, right? So it looks impressive, so that those who are not in medical science, they should not be able to understand what we are talking about, right? So that's why we said that let's use the word phobic. Phobic means phobia. Phobia means fear, right? Right. So phobic means fear, right? So there should not be any phobia of fear or fear of exam, right? Over here we are talking about water. So this is hydrophobic or fear of water. And philic, right? So that is loving. So this is lipophilic. So that means our our head is hydrophilic, correct? Our head is hydrophilic, and this tail is lipophilic. So obviously we just remember who loves, right? Why to remember who hates? So in that case, this also becomes quite musical. That head is hydrophilic, right? It loves water. And again, H is H, right? H is H2O. And this junction is glycerol, okay? Now they are arranged like this, right? As we said that they are bilayer, right? Layer 1, layer 2, right? So they are both like upside down. So we have heads are over here, so they are hydrophilic, they love the water. Similarly here also it loves the water, but in between portion it hates the water. So thus it is making a layer between two environments. This environment, which is over here, right, it is extracellular, and this one which is inside the cell, that we'll call it as intracellular, right? This entire model, right, Singer Nicholson, no, it is Singer and Nicholson, right? It is not Singer Nicholson, otherwise, right, we'll make the scientist a singer, right? So his name was Nicholson and Singer was another person. So Singer and Nicholson, they gave this idea that this we'll call it as fluid mosaic model. Fluid mosaic model. Fluid mosaic model, that is, in which fluid means it is talking about the lipids part, and mosaic means pattern, that is by the protein part. We'll discuss the protein as it arrives, right? So this is the lipid we are talking about. Cell membrane, it this is another, we already talked about it, that is selective permeability, or it permeable is selectively. It depends on something. Now this is vital, right? This is vital. We must know this thing. and should not cram this. It's like deep in your mind, this thing should be cemented, because it is the foundation of so many concepts in pharmacology. It is the foundation of toxicology. It is the foundation of side effects of the drug, and it is foundation of so many normal processes in the physiology, even other our subjects, right? A very simple plain concept, though it looks bit tricky, but once you understand, you'll find that it is not at all, it is completely logical, right? So here it is. As we said that this cell membrane is selectively permeable. It will not allow everyone. Well, on what factors will it depend? It will depend upon first the size. Yeah, this makes sense. If the size is small, right? If the size of that is small, so obviously it will just sneak in between the layers, right? Its size is small, so it will tick 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 tick, right? And it will pass. Size is small, so that's okay. They can sneak in. So it depends upon the size. Size could be small, size could be large. Then comes the polarity, and then comes the charge. But what is this polarity, right? In books, you'll find that it is written that it depends upon size, polarity, and charge, and then, right? It keeps on going. This polarity is what? Now let's go back to our chemistry, right? The moment, this is so interesting, the moment you will see the structure, you will see H2O, immediately you will say, this is polar, right? When you'll say Cl2, you'll say this is non-polar. When you'll see hydrogen fluoride, you'll say this is polar, right? Just by look at it, you will be able to say polar or non-polar. And the fun part is that when you say it like this, it looks so impressive, because almost half of the audience, they must be staring at you, that how scientific are you. Once you understand the principle, you'll find that it is this much only. Yeah, actually it is this much only, right? So we'll talk about the charge after that, right? So, but these are the three: size, polarity, and the charge. Now we focus on polarity. What polarity is, obviously, when we divide it into that polar and non-polar, it has to be like that. But it depends upon the covalent bond. Covalent bond means it is a bond in which that electron is shared, right? Now, let's take it this way. When there are two persons, right? When there are two persons, right? And let me draw it again, right? Say this is a bus, right? We are traveling, and let's say this is a bus, and that's the seat where it is for two people. Now it's okay if if it is properly divided, right? But when you travel by airlines, have you felt that yeah, that's okay. Means logically, substance that dissociate are polar, fine, right? But what I'm trying to explain is, say, whenever you travel by air, right, there is always a fight, and unnecessary, there is a cold fight between you and the passenger who is sitting next to you. You know what happens? That as soon as you have tied your belt, that there is only one armrest. So sorry. There is only one armrest, and then there starts the competition, that who puts the hand first on that armrest, right? And then the other person would be sitting like this, right? Just watching that. The moment he takes away his hand, right, he'll put his hand. There is always a fight between that, right? And if both are, say, gentlemen, so then they both would share, okay, ठीक है, half you put your hand like this, and other would say, I'll put my hand like this, and they'll adjust. But this is more or less like polarity. If they both are good, right, so they'll say, okay, this is the armrest, and we'll share it half. So that means there is no partiality, everything is fine. But if one is like this and he puts hand like this, another one would be like this. So in this case, the energy level has shifted on this side. This is polarity. Same thing happens over here. In case of polar in covalent bond, electrons are not equally shared. They are pulled on one side. So see here it is. It is the hydrogen, the poor hydrogen and the ferocious, this fluoride, right? This is more negative. So they share this electron, but this fluoride is so ferocious. He is so much negative that here this entire electron, it swings towards one side because of his polarity. Means the whole thing becomes polar. It is like this portion, right, that is towards the fluoride, it is slightly negative, and which is on the hydrogen side, it is slightly positive, because electron, though that electron is the property of both of them, but still he is pulling it on one side. This is what is called as the polar. When it comes to, let's say, hydrogen, let's say both are hydrogen, so in that case, so they both are same, right? So there is no pull. That shared electron is exactly in the center. So practically speaking, over here there is nothing like charge. This thing is called as the non-polar, right? So this will make a difference between whether they can pass through the cell membrane or not. So here it is for cell membrane, small and non-polar, right? Small and non-polar. That means they are small and at the same time there is no change, no difference. So they can pass through easily. They are happy guys. Then if there is any polarity, right? So yes, they can, but slow. Their speed decreases, right? They are small, so that's why they can always sneak in. But because of that polarity, that's right. That's right. It is most negative. So, but over here, small and polar, so they will be able to sneak in because size is small. But because of polarity, right, everyone would be trying to pull here or there, but because small, so they'll still sneak in. The third one, large and non-polar. They are large. They are large. But because non-polar, so no one will call them, right? They'll say they are neutral, let them go. So because their size is big, so they will just try to go, right? And here, there, and like retinol, vitamin A, they will be able to pass through, but very slow. Now comes the difficult candidates. One, they are large and at the same time they are polar. Now who will allow them, right? On one side they are large. At the same time there is a strong polarity like glucose. So they'll say you are not allowed. You will not be able to pass through the membrane seedha. Right? We have to arrange something special for you, then and then you can allow. Then and then you can go. So that special thing is what we are interested in. And finally, sorry, highly polar, and on top of it they are charged, right? Say sodium ion, that means we are talking about ions in which there is either the deficiency of electron or there is an extra electron. So there is either an extra electron or there is a deficiency of electron. So Na plus K, or sodium, potassium, chloride, they are to absolute no. Under no circumstances you can pass through without any permit. So it means what? If they are to be taken on opposite side, we have to arrange a special carriage for them. We have to arrange for a special system for that. And that system is going to take energy. That's the reason, friends, nothing more, but the example of sodium, potassium, ATPase pump was nothing but it was this only. Because highly polar charged ion, they cannot pass through the cell membrane, right? So that's why very quickly, small non-polar, they can pass. Small and polar, they can. Large, so it means if anything is small and non-polar is the best. Any of the other thing, say instead of small, it becomes large, right? So yes, its speed decreases. Instead of non-polar, it becomes polar. So yes, that also decreases the speed. But when both of them they mix, that is large and polar, bus stop. That is not allowed. And highly polar and charged, no way. Moving on to the next one, cholesterol. Yeah, regarding the PDF, I understand, right? Everyone was asking for these PDFs on which I'll you'll get it, right? You'll definitely be getting it. Just give me a day or two. I'm just trying to make, either what I do is I just give you, uh, we make a group, and then as soon as it is completed, so that in my OneDrive I just share all of you, so that whenever I want to give you something, I'll just put it into a shared folder, right? And that would automatically be given to you. You'll always be connected with me. So in case if I come across a good book, in case if I want to share some good meditation music to you, right? So I'll just put it into that, and immediately you'll get the notification, and you will be able to download it. I'll just make it in such a way that it would be read only, right? So that by mistake, I'm not telling deliberate, right? But by mistake also, someone is not erasing that folder, right? Or erasing the contents. Yeah, that can also be done. We can create a all right, chalo, we'll do that, right? I'll do that. That is also a good idea. We can even create a Telegram channel. We will do that. Okay. So that I'll keep on, because there is so much of other stuff also, right? And yeah, Telegram will become, yeah, and Telegram will become good also, easy also. Yeah. Thanks, Omya. This is good. Okay. So coming to this cholesterol, right? Organic molecule, it is sterol, right? It is a type of liquid. And this provides durability. This provides durability. That's the word. That's the word you have to remember. It is the durability to cell membrane. Say our cell membranes, they are not made up of steel, right? They are very delicate. At the same time, they need to be flexible. So that's why there has to be something which should be able to sustain under all situations. So in case of high temperature, when the temperature is high, right? When the temperature is high, so it will lead to all these phospholipid layers, right? All these molecules, they'll start spreading apart. That's where the cholesterol will come in, and it will be acting like a glue and will not let them go far apart, go for absolute separation, right? So this is like a binding function. When the temperature is low, right? When it is really cold, so at that time the whole unit would shrink, but they should not crush each other. So that's where once again this cholesterol will come into picture, and it will prevent that internal crushing. So in any case, its main function is durability, right? Its main function is durability. It will make things so durable, right? Some cells, say for example, is that there a good real function of it? Yeah, say in RBC, right? In red blood cells, there are high levels of cholesterol, high levels. So it can withstand high wear and tear, because this RBC, that poor RBC, he keeps on tumbling, right? He'll keep on tumbling, and that's where, say, it is very much needed. And this is precursor of vitamin D. So these lipids, they increase membrane fluidity, right? Membrane fluidity, which is healthy, which is a good thing. Now, how do we really see it? See, on every box, whatever we buy, right? There are so many, means advertisement part, so you just forget, right? They claim anything and everything, right? Simply just by that box, they say that yes, if you really want to improve, say, mental health of your kid, so that he or she gets good mark, drink this and drink that. If you really go into the detail of it, because see, this is like, we are public, that's why we can't take some names, right? But otherwise, all those advertisements, they are so bad. Means it's like they give all sorts of nonsense things. Literally, if you see the content of that particular drink, right, which is advised that you drink it in the morning every day, there are loads of sugar, right? Actually, the amount of protein or amount of nutrition, whatever is needed for our body, that particular content is so less, right? They make it tasty, they put all those things, And now they have become still more smart. Instead of say writing sugar, it is written like maple syrup. Looks so good, right? But what it is finally, so it is same byban of that only. This is what you have to look at, right? It has got nothing to do with our today's topic, but still watch for this PUFA, right? The idea is purified unsaturated fatty acids, they are good. Unsaturated fatty acids, they are good. Saturated fatty acids, so S saturated, right? S for that is all sada hua, right? So that is stale or sada hua, right? So it is the saturated. Stearic acid is bad. Palmitic acid, this is bad. These are bad. So in case if we get the stearic acid and palmitic acid, they are bad, right? And when we talk about linoleic acid, linolanic acid, and arachidonic acid, these are all good, right? These are unsaturated fat. Remember, unsaturated fat. I might ask a question in the exam on this, right? So linoleic acid, linolanic acid, see I marked N extra. Linolanic acid and arachidonic acid, they all are good. And the stearic and palmitic, avoid. They are not good. So here is our now today's guest of honor, proteins. And we created this entire scenery for these proteins because now proteins are entering into the picture and they'll create this entire session a complete pleasure. Here is, there are proteins. Some of the proteins are like, they are integral part of cell membrane, means they right from the entire thickness they just pass through and through the cell membrane. It's like if you have to remove them, you have to destroy the cell membrane. They won't leave the cell membrane ever. They are part of it. That's why they are called as the integral proteins. And then we figured out that yes, there are some good keywords over there. They are for large polar charged. Yes, now we are interested. That's what we were waiting since long, that how our large polar charged particles will be working on, right? That's where these integral proteins, they are coming into picture. Transport proteins, we'll also call them transport protein because that's the transport system which they are providing for those who are large and polar and charged, right? Everything is against us. They are large, they are polar, they are charged, all those three factors. And then we have got someone, but yes, there is a system, that is a transport system. Okay, there are few other proteins which are lipid bound proteins. Okay, and then there are peripheral proteins. So we saw three types of proteins. One was integral, embedded. Second, which was connected with lipids, which we'll see later. And these are peripheral. These peripheral proteins, so that name itself tells that they are not inside, they are just on periphery. They are on RBC, they are on skeletal muscle. Okay. Now, normally, that's the normal shape of the RBC, right? This is the normal shape. It is like a dumbbell shaped, right? And when we watch it, so it is like this, right? With the depression on the center, right? So from the side when we watch, it looks like this. Okay. It's because of two proteins, this spectrine and ankyrin. Spectrine and ankyrin. Yes, you have to remember this name. You have to. This name is important due to two reasons, as it is associated with two important questions, two important diseases, right? These are the hereditary disease. Whenever there is mutation, right? Whenever the development is off the track, this ankyrin, if anything goes to ankyrin, it leads to hereditary spherocytosis. Spherocytosis. It means those RBCs which were looking like this, right? Sorry, they were looking like this. Now they are looking like this. right? They are like sphere from all the sides. So that is the purpose of ankyrin. So you can say that ankyrin was something putting the anchors, and it was keeping the shape like this dumbbell. But now it is not there. So every side has got the full liberty, and that's where it leads to spherocytosis. Okay. In case of spectrin, in spectrin it becomes elliptocytosis. So it becomes elliptical, right? Elliptocytosis. So do remember these names, spectrin and the ankyrin. Lipid anchored proteins, that's what we talked about over here. Lipid anchored proteins. Now we are working on it. Lipid anchored proteins, their function, right? Their function is vital. They prevent hemolysis, right? They are abundant in RBC and they prevent hemolysis. They prevent breakdown of those RBCs. And their names are like CD55 and CD59. Now, what are these systems? Right? It's a huge complement topic, huge topic. So at this point of time, just remember these numbers, right? These numbers. For me, though, it was so easy to remember this number because my roll number in medical was 54, right? And there were few interesting persons on 55 and 59. Don't ask me more, okay? See, I was not a brilliant student, so I had to go for all those techniques. And then by remembering those persons, still today, if you ask me immediately, I'll say, okay, these were, okay, bus, right? Sensor. So now these are the peripheral proteins on skeletal muscle, right? Most important, the name is dystrophin, right? It is the dystrophin. Dystrophin is again the anchoring protein. It is the anchoring protein. So this dystrophin, so whenever there is some work is to be done, so it is the anchor which is so important, because once it is anchored, so then and then you can really pull the thing because it is acting as a base, right? So that's what is called as the anchoring protein. It fixes one point. Whenever there is any mutation, now that anchor is gone. Now if this anchor is gone, it leads to what's called as the Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Yes, do remember this name, right? If not more, initially just remember DM dystrophy, right? But yes, dystrophin, that's the name is to be remembered, right? It is what it does, it leads to skeletal muscle paralysis. When the skeletal muscles are paralyzed, it means everything is there. All systems are there. Things are good, but death is due to respiratory muscle paralysis, right? That's painful. So here are, now we are back to our transport proteins for this big, polar and charged one, because now he is our guest of honor, right? Guest of honor. So first thing, as we said that there are few integral proteins, and these integral proteins, they are, say the example is aquaporin channel. So this is a transmembrane protein. It is passing through and through the membrane, right? We just can't separate it. So they are transmembrane protein. So they are one. Yeah, we are now talking about wherever we write this R, right? Wherever we write this R means receptor. Now these proteins which are passing through the membrane, through and through, we are coming up with a new word, GPCR. What GPCR is? GP, this C means coupled, right? This C is coupled and R is receptor. That means this particular protein, right, is getting married with some another protein. Which one, right? This is, the P is protein. Yeah, that is protein, right? So this is G is the component, right, which is associated closely with this particular type of receptor. So we'll see that. Just keep this thing in mind. Then there would be few channels, right? These are the channels. So these channels, they are specific. Say for example, glucose, right? Glucose was big, right? So glucose transporter, that means it is a special channel. No, it's not so. You will be notified, right? Because as soon as such, if you put anything on that shared folder that way, right, you get the mail. Because in my trainings I do that, but no problem. I think that Telegram idea is good. We'll do that. Okay, coming back to this, in channel glucose transporter, it is GLUT4. So that is a glucose transporter. It is a channel which is meant only for the glucose purpose, right? And then there are pumps. Say pumps, they work against concentration, though that's why we require energy, and that's the example of sodium potassium ATPase pump. Okay. And finally, we were talking about carbohydrates, right? Though just 4%, 5%, but let's say this is our RBC. On top of the RBC, there is Hutch antigen. That's the Hutch antigen, which is a protein. So this particular protein is Hutch antigen, and on top of it, this is NAG, right? NAG. This is N-acetyl galactosamine. So if it is on that Hutch antigen, if it is NAG, then I would say my blood group is A, right? We are not talking about A plus or A minus, because that is the rhesus factor, right? That is the RH factor. So if the RH factor is present in such case, so it's like my blood group A positive, right? If this is RH negative, so in that case it becomes someone else's blood group, it becomes A negative. But that's the whole idea. Now, instead of this NAG, if it is G, that is galactose, so then it becomes B, blood group B. If neither NAG nor G are present, then it becomes O. So thus this particular system, ABO group method, that was which was given by Landsteiner. He got a Nobel Prize for that. And that's the system which is currently also in use. But if none of the H antigen is present, that means neither NAG nor G, none of them is present. That's okay. We say that it is the O group. But what if that base on which they are getting mounted, that itself is not there? So in that, when there is no H antigen, right, it is called as a rare blood group. That is the Bombay blood group. It is quite rare. Right. Now on my channel, if you wish, there is a film on cell membrane, right? In the playlist, once you will go, or I can put the link of that film, but once you will go into the playlist, right, in medical science, right, there is a cell membrane. In that, I have talked in depth about, say, so many rare blood groups, right? And some of the medicines whose cost is, say, it goes in few lakhs, right? That treatment is so costly, like say eculizumab, etc. Right? The treatments, they run in lakhs. Per dose, it runs in lakhs. Okay, so carbohydrate, when they are with proteins, so we call it glycoprotein. When they are with lipids, so they are called as glycolipids, right? Carbohydrates, they are like glyco. So combination of glycoprotein and glycolipid, this is very interesting, and this would be the foundation for our tomorrow's lecture, right? In which college you will complete your MBBS? It means you are asking me, or you are asking, means, gentlemen, I completed my MBBS. I did from BJ Medical College, Ahmedabad. So this glycoproteins, and by the way, if this question is for all others, so then please don't do that, right? Because otherwise that chat becomes a chatterbox. Okay, so this glycoprotein and glycolipids, The combination of both of them, right? It's like fingerprint. It is unique to each cell, right? It is unique to each cell. And this is what is kept into our defense database, right? And our defense database means our immunity system. And it is that immunity system would say that, okay, who are you, right? It'll ask the cell would say, okay, this is my identity. It'll say, okay, let me show your glycolipids and glycoproteins, and fine, that is in our database. Fine, do not attack on this cell, they are ours, and let's proceed to those pathogens. Right? So that's how they proceed. They are like fingerprints, they are like IDs. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I travel a lot. I travel a lot. So receptors, now we are moving on to the receptors. So these receptors, which will now from this point onwards, we'll be writing it like R, right? They are macromolecules, big molecules. And it's like with ligand binding area. Ligand binding area. It means that every receptor will be having a specific surface on which ligand would be bound. What is ligand? Ligand is nothing but anything and everything which is available in the body in the form of chemical. So it could be a drug, it could be a toxin, it could be a neurotransmitter, hormones, cytokines, growth factors, anything. There is someone for someone, everyone, everywhere, right? Like I don't know how, if I have said the dialogue properly or not, but it was in some film. I don't remember the films, but sometimes I do remember those dialogues. But it was like in some film, right? Someone for someone. So over here, yes, for receptors, it is also like that. That there is a specific receptor for specific drug, toxins, neurotransmitter, hormones, cytokines, everywhere. Things are very, very proper. Purpose to generate some biological activity. Now, what's that biological activity? Well, it depends upon the drug, depends upon the receptor, what they are planning to do, right? Else, we won't call them receptor. It's like they are just plasma proteins, right? Just plasma proteins. They are not receptors, though they do have, they are macromolecule and they do have some these binding areas. So here is our first character. This is our first character, right? He is like telling that yes, I'm a receptor, right? And there are hormones like say peptides, catecholamines, right? They said that we can't enter the cell, right? They can't enter the cell. So what they do, right? They say that okay, this is my message, right? Pass my message in, right? And here is our heartless security person, like that heartless chokidar, right? But he is good, right? So he would pass on the message inside, right? So don't take any impression, right? These hearts, they are just symbolic, okay? Nothing more, right? So that's how the message is passed on. Now then there are some brave hearts, right? Some small unionized lipid soluble. Right? These are all very special characters. Right? Small unionized lipid soluble. They'll say forget about this message part, right? Straight away jump in, right? And they enter into the cell. So it has got nothing to do with the real life, right? I'm not giving you any ideas, right? So don't take that, right? This is, we are teaching, we are understanding the medical concepts, okay? So we are talking about that those large polar, they cannot enter the cell. So they will tell this receptor that, okay, take my message and pass it in, right? That would be done. Those small unionized lipid soluble, they will simply jump into the cell. Okay, that's easy. Preganglionic, preganglionic. So they have got the, this was N was, right? Nicotinic receptor, right? And what nicotinic does? Well, whether it is sympathetic or parasympathetic. Preganglionic, so they are always using acetylcholine. So confusion, no confusion. Postganglionic. Postganglionic would say that yes, we have got muscarinic. muscarinic receptors. So we have got muscarinic receptors and we have got nicotinic receptors. So in case of cholinergic, these are our receptors, right? Nicotinic and muscarinic. In case of adrenergic, receptors, we talked about that we have got alpha and beta, and then we have got alpha 1, alpha 2, and then there is beta 1, beta 2, even the beta 3, and we'll talk about all those receptors. But point is, starting with cholinergic. So in cholinergic, we have first candidate, that is nicotinic. Let's see what this nicotinic is. How come this nicotinic receptor is so smart that it tells that the action potential which came from this side, right, it was in the form of current, and it created another current into this postganglionic fiber. How was this thing possible, right? Using this acetylcholine, which was nothing but just a chemical. So there has to be something, and that something is here. Nicotinic receptor, they are also called as acetylcholine receptor. Yes, sure, because that's what they are working on. They are also called as the ionotropic receptor. This is a new word and we must remember it. It is ionotropic receptors. They are not metabolite receptors. They are ionotropic as they are dealing with ions, right? They are dealing with ion channels. That means when these receptors, they'll be activated, they'll say to some ion, okay, go, right? I'll give you some time, you go and then come back. So that's like ion channels. These are, we are talking about nicotinic receptors, which are cholinergic, right? And that's why they are called as acetylcholine receptor. What, to whom they permit? They permit the sodium and potassium. They are allowed, right? You go. So sodium and potassium, they'll start traveling. They are allowed to pass through them. Now this nicotinic receptor, it has got, how is it? How that message goes to this nicotinic receptor, that when the current comes, right? When this acetylcholine comes and it leads to passage of the sodium potassium. So going into the deeper structure of this nicotinic receptor, there are 5 subunits and they are arranged like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How are they? There is alpha, beta, gamma and delta. Alpha, there are 2, otherwise rest are 1, 1, 1. Now this whole thing is like a tunnel. This is a closed tunnel, right? This looks like a tunnel. These are the 5 areas and that's the tunnel which is closed. That acetylcholine, it comes. Now here is our nicotinic receptor, right? So those acetylcholine, they come, right? They come, and then they get attached to alpha 1 and this is alpha 2. That is a alpha subunit, right? Then they go on this beta, gamma and delta, and nothing with them. This tunnel is right now closed, which is in the center. And from where this acetylcholine is coming, acetylcholine was released by those vesicles which opened, that was from those terminal, right? Those terminals. So here there was the synapse, right? So from these areas, in very small quantity, this neurotransmitter acetylcholine was released. Right? There is a complete mechanism of how this acetylcholine is formed and released, right? But that also we'll take in our future lectures, right? That is also very interesting. So much so that is associated with something, the assassination of one very important person in the world, right? That entire thing was planned in such a way, right? This was the mechanism which was used. Anyway, coming back to this, what we are right now doing is what is happening on this end, So this synapse has got 2 function, say areas of work. One, how this acetylcholine is released, and second is how this acetylcholine is acting. First, we are understanding how it is acting, right? Formation part, right now we are taking it for granted that acetylcholine is in the stock, and right, he is firing that acetylcholine gun, and those acetylcholines, they are coming onto the postganglionic fibers. This is what they do. Alpha 1 subunits are there and they stick to it. As soon as they stick, immediately this tunnel opens, See, this is the point. That tunnel opens. And when this tunnel opens, this tunnel is specific for sodium and potassium only. So sodium starts traveling, and in the reverse direction, it is the potassium, right? Now, what sodium would be doing? This will lead to, when the sodium is coming inside in large quantity. So obviously it will lead to, right, depolarization. That's what we have learned, depolarization. And then at certain point, as soon as certain temperature, certain say voltage is reached, right, this voltage gated, it stops, and then rest of the journey starts. So it is this cell depolarization that is the cellular response of acetylcholine. So when acetylcholine comes, right, it opens that tunnel and things start going through and through. So that was nicotinic receptor, right? The nicotinic receptor, which was over here, right? This is our preganglionic and this is the postganglionic fiber, and that's where we are dealing with nicotinic. Let's move further, and that's area now where there is an effective organ, right? Where it is the target for which the whole purpose has been set. That's where we are getting muscarinic receptor. It is the muscarinic receptor. In case of muscarinic receptor, it is also called as we said, that it is a metabotropic acetylcholine receptor. Metabotropic because it activates certain proteins, right? How they are formed? Due to metabolism, right? Due to metabolism. Some chemical reactions are occurring, and that is leading to that formation of those proteins. So if we understand that what metabolism it is going on, things will become easy. Remember nicotinic, right? Nicotinic was having that 2 alpha, right? Beta, gamma, delta. That was 1. But now we are dealing with muscarinic. So muscarinic said, no, my function is different. My function is metabolic, right? I'll be forming intracellular protein. So I cannot be of the same structure. Though they both are integral part of cell membrane, right? When they are into the cell membrane, they are tightly bound. No one can really peel them off. But here, this is the superly attached with the cell membrane. 7-pass receptor, or it is also called as the serpentine receptor, or it can also be called as just the transmembrane receptor. Whatever the name which we give, the purpose is simple. It passes through the cell membrane 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So 7 times it would pass, right? Thus it becomes integral part. It cannot be separated. Now it has got one zone or the area where someone has to come and tell that what message is to be passed inside, right? So it is the inside part which would activate intracellular protein, not directly, but by a mechanism. So that's how these receptors, they are physically placed. Now starts the action time. Muscarinic receptors, they are GPCR. Now we are coming to that point where we said just remember that G, right? Just remember that G. This is a protein coupled receptor. It means it is married to some specific protein. It is that protein which will be helping for rest of the operations. And that protein is, this is guanine nucleotide binding protein, or simply called as the G protein, right? So that's the protein, guanine nucleotide binding protein. It's a binding protein. This G protein, right, from now point onwards, we'll just call it a G protein. This G protein, it is into the state of GDP, right? It is into the state of GDP. This GDP, diphosphate, when it is given ATP, it becomes GTP, right? He becomes big, he becomes famous. Over here, no one was asking for him, inactive. Now he has become a celebrity. He's asking for some, everyone asking, this is active. So when he becomes active, he'll tell this, this alpha unit, it will tell rest of the members that, okay, bye, right? I'm going for some work. And it would go. So here is our receptor, G protein coupled receptor. On the inner side, there are alpha unit, beta unit, and the gamma unit. It is this alpha unit with whom there is a couple attachment of GDP, right? This GDP, life is good, right? And it's a peaceful life. One day, ATP comes. This GDP becomes GTP. GTP tells this alpha that why are you wasting your time, wasting your life, right? Let's move. And right, they are like, right, telling that our good friend has gone, right? Went with GTP and it goes. When it goes, something happens. Right, we'll come to this part. Now, let's first see this thing. What happens? That's a real action. So when it goes, right, it goes to phospholipase C. It goes to phospholipase C in the cell membrane. This phospholipase C in the cell membrane, right? It goes over there. Then let's do some business. So this phospholipase C, which is into the cell membrane, right? It will say, okay, let's go to this PIP2. Right? See, there are so many characters, and every character will be coming one after the another for some final good work. So this PIP2, right? This PIP2, it is such a good name, because otherwise, again, in some movie, that person asked that what's your name, and that name itself, it was like he kept that this is my name, this is my father's name, this is your father's name, right? I don't know. It was some very interesting movie, right? Funny movie. And one of my student, he remembered that entire dialogue, right? It was so funny, right? I know someone would tell me that name also, but this is exactly like that. This PIP2, it looks so simple, so cute, but actually it is phosphatidyl ionositol 4,5 base phosphate, right? That's the whole name. So this name you should remember for your self-defense, right? Because you are medicos, and whenever there is any fight, if you tell someone that don't behave like phosphatidyl ionositol 4,5 base phosphate, right? That person won't stand in front of you, right? He'll go away, because he must not have ever heard this word in his life, that someone telling him this, right? So this is to be learned only for the self-defense. Okay, by the way, right, this PIP2, now PIP2 story doesn't end over here. This PIP2, it leads to formation of ionositol triphosphate. Now this is a decent name, right? IP3, ionositol triphosphate. And this ionositol triphosphate, right, it is soluble, it diffuses into the cytoplasm, and it goes all the way to endoplasmic reticulum. Here it is. Here it is. It is this endoplasmic reticulum where it will be triggered by IP3 and will lead to loads of release of calcium. And these are the calciums which we were getting for all those. Yeah, Dhamal, exactly. Yeah, you guys are good. Yeah, that movie was Dhamal. Exactly. So good. So good. Thank you. Right? So that endoplasmic reticulum, he releases loads of this calcium, and that calcium is playing the entire role. Depolarization of cell, and then that gives what's called as the cellular activity. Right? Now you know that, because it leads to that contraction, everything. Still, there is one player left out. This diacylglycerol, right? DAG. You'll say I always tell about movies, right? But yeah, I remember it like that, because there was some villain's name. His name was Daga, right? So I always remember it like that, right? DAG. And I'm sure someone will give name of that movie also. Anyway, so this diacylglycerol, DAG, which is also attached to cell membrane, what it does, this DAG, right, it will say that protein kinase C, that is PKC, protein kinase C, I can come and stimulate you, but we'll need calcium. They'll say calcium that has been released by this endoplasmic reticulum in the presence of this ionocetal triphosphate. That's right. Over here, this PIP2 released IP3, IP3 triggered endoplasmic reticulum, calcium. So now though there is no kami, right? There are so many calcium all the way. So it is this DAG, it will say, okay, PKC, now there is calcium. So you are activated. Once they are activated, now he is on fire. There was a small electricity failure, and now can you see me? Can anyone just type and confirm? Can you see me? And can you see what I am writing? Hello, can you hear me? Can you see me? Mm, can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay, it seems that there is some problem in the chat, but well, I got the message. Yes, can see and hear. Okay, fine. I I think I'll continue with the topic, right? Because it was so unfortunate because of that stupid electricity failure, right? Someone anyway, anyway, no need to spoil our mood. Let's go back to where we left off. Unfortunately, I can't see what you guys are typing because nothing is appearing over here, but because that's what I am missing. But it's okay, right? We finish this session and hopefully right? In the second session, the chat will come back. Let's give some time. Maybe this thing will come back. This chat will come back. Right now, I'm just watching the last message of that Dhamal. Right? Only that much is coming. Okay, no worries. So just do remember, because whatever you must be typing, I'm unable to see that. Let me see it once again for the final time. And then no, I have sent the message. Hello. Hello, hello. I'm just watching my messages only, unable to see any of yours. No problem. As far as you can see me, hear me, right, I'll again just confirm. Uh, is all okay? Can you hear me? If yes, I'll take it for granted. Yeah, because I can see that there are 70 friends, so must be. Just waiting for the reply and then I'll start. Okay. All right. All right. I think you guys can watch me. That's more than enough. So we due to this, say, interruption, we are taking it bit again, right? Bit fast. So here is the beta unit, gamma unit, and the alpha unit of our GPCR G protein coupled receptor, and his name is like GQ, right? His name is GQ, right? This is GQ because GQ, as there will be more names, right? There'll be even more names. So this is GQ. This GQ, when it comes in, it's always in contact with GDP. This GDP, this particular receptor, when it is with GDP, and one day ATP comes, this GDP becomes GTP. GTP is active. He tells ke alpha, let's move. They move, they go to phospholipase C. Phospholipase C in the cell membrane, it will say, let's move on to, let's synthesize this PIP2. PIP2 is the phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 base phosphate, right? And that would lead to formation of inositol triphosphate IP3. This IP3 is soluble and it is very powerful, diffuses freely in cytoplasm, moves to endoplasmic reticulum and releases calcium. This calcium is useful for whom? For this DAGA, right? Diacetyl glycerol. This is attached to surface, so this will say, DAG will say that, okay, we can synthesize protein kinase C. But protein kinase C needs calcium, but now there is large amount of calcium, so this calcium is utilized and he is now on fire. He can phosphoryl a group. Phosphorylation means active, make active. Remember, wherever you'll get this word phosphorylation, phosphorylation. Phosphorylation means make that sleepy person active, right? So this now protein kinase C who is activated, now this phosphorylation, he'll act and he'll act on all those target proteins who are just sleeping, not doing anything, and now they become active, and that's what is called as the cellular response, right? It will come in the form of hormones, it will come in the form of some protein synthesis, insulin, everything will be revolving around this particular system. So as such, if you see, everything is so properly planned and set, right? So that's what is over here. It is just a game of that ATP when it comes and it goes like this, right? And when out of this entire process, when this ATP is lost, when he becomes once again GDP, so he'll say, okay, we are friends again, again, right? So again, it is that bura waqt, and they'll say, acha, we are back, right? And when This ATP comes, again he'll go away and will start working his own field, right? Okay. So that's what GQ we talked about. Now, why this is so interesting? Because it is not only GQ, there are other G protein couples. It is like GI and GS. So I, you can say for inhibitory, and S is stimulant, stimulated, right? So that is GQ, GI, and GS, right? And we have M1, M2, M3, M4, M5 muscarinic receptors. So many types? Well, yes, there are, right? There are 5 types of these muscarinic effects. That's why I was telling, let's dive deep. Let's go into the depth. Now, this is what we are planning. It is at this point, M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, every odd number is associated with GQ, right? So it is M1, M3, M5, they are with GQ, right? That is with GQ. M2 and M4, right? They both are even numbers. So those even numbers, they are with GI, right? They are with GI. And this, what about this GS? So that means this GS must be something special, huh? This GS, yeah, actually, right? Only in case of M1, it has got some quantity of GI and GS. So this means what? Think it like, guys, think like this, that it is one cell, right? It is one cell. Cell is not like that there is only one type of receptor. It is a combination of receptors. It's a mix of receptors. So cells can have mixed kit of receptors, right? It has got, it can have GQ, it can have GI, it can have GS, all of them like M1, or it can have only unique thing like M3 and M5, they'd only have that GQ, or M2 and M4, they can have M, that GI, right? So that's how it is related. So we saw that what GQ would be doing. GQ is taking all very metabolic positive steps, right, which are leading to that cellular response. So then what our other candidate is doing, right? Let's see that. So in case of M1, right, this is like M1, and we are talking about, say, GS. So again, this GDP will come, right? But this time it is with this 1 ATP, that triphosphate, right? That phosphate, yeah, by the way, it was phosphate, not ATP, phosphate, right? And this will be leading to stimulation of adenylate cyclase. This adenylate cyclase, that will lead to formation of ATP and will generate these phosphates. So in nutshell, what would be the final output? It will get cyclic AMP. That's what GS is doing. For GS, production of cyclic AMP from release of these phosphate groups, right? It leads to formation of the cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP, it is what it is using, protein kinase, right? It acts on a regulatory subunit of protein kinase A. See, over there it was protein kinase C. Here it is protein kinase A. And this protein kinase A has got 2 units. One, the regulatory unit, and second is catalytic unit. Protein kinase A is sitting over there. In presence of cyclic AMP, right, this is activated, so it gets separated from catalytic subunit. So this is now separate. And this catalytic subunit, it is again phosphorylating the target audience. This is the target. I'll try to explain it again in still simpler words. Previously, this is like phosphorylation is needed. That's the final output. Then and then you get the cellular response. In case of GQ, what was happening was that in case of GQ, right, it was this DAG, diacylglycerol, in presence of calcium was the person who was going for phosphorylation, and this phosphorylation was leading to cellular response. Rest of the processes, they were just to reach to that point, right? All the process. In case of GQ, it is binding, it is going to phospholipase C. Phospholipase C to this is PIP2 was forming, right? Then that PIP2 was triggering two things. One was IP3 inositol triphosphate, and second was DAG, diacylglycerol, right? It is this diacylglycerol who is very important, who will be actually going for that phosphorylation of all other, and so that giving the cellular response. Inositol triphosphate will say you will be requiring Baba calcium, right? Calcium is what I supply. How? Because I can straight away go to the supplier. IP3 will float into the cytoplasm, will reach to the supplier endoplasmic reticulum, and will say, okay, I'll pay, you release the calcium. All right, trucks of calcium, they are released, and one of the truck will reach to this DAG. DAG, in presence of calcium, will say that protein kinase C is ready. Yes, it is ready, and it is this protein kinase C will carry out the function of phosphoryl of the rest of the structures so that you get cellular response, right? Over here, final response would be same, but it is by other path. That other path is adenylate cyclase, and then with this ATP, it will get converted to cyclic AMP by release of these phosphates, right? And this time, previously it was protein kinase C, now it is protein kinase A, right? It has to be protein kinase. It is the protein kinase who can really phosphorylate a substance. So there protein kinase C was there, over here protein kinase A is there. But this protein kinase A works in a different way. It has got a regulatory subunit. So that regulatory subunit is telling to this catalytic subunit that, okay, Shant Gadadhari Bhim, right? It will say, don't act, right? Shant. But now that cyclic AMP comes, and this cyclic AMP is so beautiful, right? So it takes this regulatory subunit along with her, and then now this is alone, right? This catalytic subunit of protein kinase will be on fire, and he'll phosphorylate whosoever comes in the path on those target protein, and that's how you get the cellular response, right? So it is protein kinase A or protein kinase C which is responsible, PKC and PKA, right? PKA is for GS and this is for GQ. They both give cellular response, but their paths are different. GI is easy. GI is what you see on M2 and M4, as we said that this is I, right, which is inhibitory, and it is on even numbers, so M2 and N4. Alpha, beta, gamma, same say style, say GDP, and it is, right, that phosphate, right, and it is, this becomes GTP. Oh, this is okay, right, and it inhibits. So now this is like when this alpha unit is attached with this GTP, it inhibits. It inhibits this adenylate cyclase. This adenylate cyclase was the person who was triggering formation of cyclic AMP. Now you are stopping that only? Yes, that's what really happens. It will stop it, right? When this is stopped, so cyclic AMP is not generated. Right? When cyclic AMP is not generated, that means that regulatory component of protein kinase A won't be separated, right? Because now cyclic AMP is not there. So this won't separate, this won't separate. So in that case, this catalytic subunit, right, with all the firepower, right? He's grounded. So this aircraft now cannot fly and bombard, right? He's grounded. So that means no cellular response. So this is like a negative feedback mechanism. There has to be a control. So this acts as a control, right? Obviously, this inhibitory thing will go to only those organs to whom you don't want to, say, stimulate. So in case of parasympathetic activity, remember, where will we find M2 and M4? Well, in parasympathetic activity, we want that, okay, digestive system should stimulate, they should work. Those who should work, come on, all of them, they will be into the GQ, right? So they will be having M1, M3, M5, right? Because you guys have to work. And we'll say, okay, respiratory system or the heart rate, you need not work more. So now I need to tell you that you don't work. So it means they all will be given GI, right? GI is working on whom? It is working on M2 and M4. All right. So if I put M2 and M4, that is muscarinic type 2 and muscarinic type 4 on heart, so it is just one release of acetylcholine, but that one release of acetylcholine will tell GIT, you start contracting and work, and then same acetylcholine when it goes to heart, right? It will say that I am acetylcholine. The moment M2, M4 will see the face of acetylcholine, they'll say, okay, we'll do the work, whatever is assigned to you. Our work is to inhibit, to say no. They go and they tell the heart that heart, don't work that fast, slow down, and it will decrease the heart rate, right? So interesting, but so simple. Now, same style, if you see this adrenergic receptor, it is exactly same, just the action would be reversed, right? Because it has got the specific receptor. To those who are inhibitory for parasympathetic will be stimulatory for sympathetic and vice versa. So first thing first, epinephrine or norepinephrine is what it is used collectively. We call that thing as catecholamines, right? It is for fight, fright, and flight response. That's fine. And they are also GPCR. It has to be GPCR, right? It has to be. Because those simple methods of just transport, etc., that is okay. That was in pre-ganglionic stage. Here, though, they are in full-fledged action, right? They are on the tissues. So they have to work. So this is adrenergic receptor alpha and beta. So we have got subunits alpha 1, alpha 2, and the beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. Trust me, quite easy this is, right? We'll come back to this page. First, let's see. Here it is. Here also there is GQ, right? Entire thing is ditto, same, no change. This GDP when connects with ATP, it becomes GTP, that will give to phosphatidyl C, right? PLC. It will lead to this PIP2, right? That long name, phosphatidylinositol, right? Base 4,5 bisphosphate, right? And then it will lead to formation of IP3 and DAG, right? That DAGA, right? That cytoplasm IP3, it is in large quantity. It will go to endoplasmic reticulum, will release the calcium, and then that calcium will lead to cellular response. But things are not ending at that point. This DAG will bind protein kinase C. Yes, this protein kinase C, PKC. In presence of calcium, this protein kinase C will carry out rest of the operation by phosphorylating other target proteins, and it will activate cellular response. Exactly same as what we learned for cholinergic, right? But only thing, this time it is in the presence of our epinephrine or norepinephrine, right? This thing is happening, right? In presence of epinephrine or norepinephrine. Previously, it was in the presence of acetylcholine, right? Cholinergic. Okay. So same way, here this is stimulatory. Now you know the drill, right? It leads to formation of GDP, becomes GTP. Alpha is separated, adenylate cyclase. ATP, it leads to formation, release of two phosphates, and there is the master material, cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP will go to protein kinase A, who has got the regulatory component. It takes regulatory component on one side so that this catalytic part of pKa is now free to act, and he will fire in the form of phosphorylation of target proteins, and that's cellular response, right? Over here in GI is what? It will stop adenyl cyclase. Adenyl cyclase stops, so it will inhibit organs not needed during sympathetic fights, right? Like it will say, what will we do if this GIT tells that yes, we need to digest that sandwich, right? No, right now fight is in progress, so no need to go for that. So GIT, urinary bladder, you guys have got no scope to work when there is sympathetic activities going on, so we need to inhibit. So what will happen, that here is the GIT, right? This particular GIT has got adrenergic receptors, right? These adrenergic receptors, they are those receptors which are having GI, because when the adrenaline is secreted, when epinephrine, norepinephrine comes into picture, so these receptors, they will be activated and they'll say, okay, stop it, right? But at the same time, when we are dealing with cholinergic, so in cholinergic, they will be having the stimulative effect. So when the acetylcholine is released, it is stimulant. When the adrenaline or norepinephrine or epinephrine is secreted, they are inhibitory, right? That's how everything goes into that, like an orchestra. What is left out is this. The way we saw that in case of cholinergic, it was M1, M2, M3, M4, and M5, right? This one, they were GQ, a solid metabolic activity. This and this, they are GI, inhibitory, right? And this one is GS, just a stimulatory. Adrenergic receptors, they are alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, right? They are like this. So here, alpha 1 is GQ, alpha 2 is GI, right? And then all the betas, they are GS. So this GQ, so this alpha 1, alpha 2, and beta 1, they are affected by norepinephrine, right? While this adrenaline secretion by adrenals, right, that can affect everyone. So this norepinephrine released in those synapses, that is affecting alpha 1, alpha 2, and beta 1. It is affecting alpha 1, alpha 2, and beta 1. So that's the difference, right? And then adrenaline all the way. Again, cells can have a mixed kit, right, in which there will be few alpha 1, there can be few beta 2, and then that's how they function. This beta 3 is very important, right? It is for those adipose tissue activity, right? For adipose tissue activity. That's what it handles. So this was the story of our receptors, right? Say, what's the time? Okay, we do have 20 minutes and we'll be back in 20 minutes for our second session, right? Meantime, I'll just reset the system so that you should be able to talk to me properly, right? And back in 15-20 minutes, right? Thank you and see you soon.